Alright guys, welcome to the very first Brunik Rokbyter YouTube video. I had an amazing stream last night with a bunch of people. We were playing some 7 Days to Die. I'm going to be uploading some video clips from that later on. I had hoped to be able to create a tutorial video, sort of, out of that content, and I really wasn't happy with the quality. More to do with my rambling and less to do with the actual, video quality. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to do this a little bit better. So I want to go over a couple of things real quick. First, note that this is Alpha 14.7. It is June 24th, 2016. If it's 3 months down the road, or if you're playing this on console on release day, realize that what you see here may not be what I'm showing you. This game is in alpha. That means they are constantly adding content to the game. That'll include server options, that'll include different things you can do. Hopefully, eventually, this create world button that's right here will be active. I can't wait. So that you can create your own world with your own rules. Those kinds of things. Right now, we're just not there. We're still in Alpha 14.7. We're expecting Alpha 15 in the next month or so, I think, according to Joel's Tumblr. Maybe a little sooner, maybe a little later. Never really 100% sure with those guys. But it's going to be adding all kinds of great features. If you don't know Joel Hunick's Tumblr, I will try to leave a link in the description, and you guys can go check that out because it is absolutely fantastic. So, first, we're going to go over the fact that we're going to create a new game. We're going to create a new single-player game, and I'm going to go over the options of what you need to be doing to try to create a successful experience for you in 7 Days to Die. Number one rule about this game: everything about this game is designed to kill you. Okay? The weather, the zombies, even the animals. This game is brutal. Now, I have about 700 plus hours in this game. That's not paused, that's not sitting in menu screens, that's 700 gaming hours. In fact, you couldn't even pause this game until not too long ago. So, realize that I have a lot of experience in surviving in this game. I'm still not good at it. I'm a horrible shot. I don't play FPSs for a reason. But absolutely, this game is amazing and fantastic, and every time they release a new alpha, I'm excited because I basically get to re-experience the game all over again for the first time. So we're going to go ahead and hit new game here. Now, let's look at our options. Okay, on this left side, survival mode, survival single player, survival multiplayer, and creative. Creative is exactly what you expect. You have all the materials in the world you can imagine. You have cheat menus, you have flying. This is God mode from Minecraft, basically. Survival multiplayer. This allows you to do like a local multiplayer, on the PC version at least, so that other people that are in your local network, like having a LAN party, can join up with you, find you, and you can join. I have heard tell that this also puts you in the server list under common servers instead of professional servers, but I haven't seen that myself. That doesn't mean it's not true. It also doesn't mean it is true. We also have a survival single player. This just basically means it's a single player experience. Your objective here is you're going to get access to the ability to pause. Survival multiplayer, even if you're playing by yourself, you won't be able to pause the game. You're going to hit escape and you're going to walk away and the zombie's going to eat you. And that's just the way it is. So, if you're playing for the first time, I highly recommend a survival single player playthrough. Okay? Now, game world. Navisgon. Navisgon is basically the Fun Pimp's testbed. It's a map they created and a world they created themselves for them to put new stuff into, and it's a solid testing ground every time they want to do something. So, if you want to see it, if you want to experience it, it is a great pre-canned world. I like the craziness of the random gen. You see some absolutely crazy things happening, and it's never the same playing experience anytime. So, I'm going to go ahead and select random gen. Now, you need to give the game a name. This name is basically going to become your save file. This game does not have a save option. Every single second that ticks gets recorded. The instant you leave the game, it's stops that recording, and when you come back, it starts back over exactly where you left off. So don't think you can try something crazy and come back and reload the game. Not gonna happen. You already lost. Now there are ways you can do it. You can go and stop, go into your files, make a copy of that save, and move it over to the side. That's a lot of work. Just don't do it in the first place. Okay, so game name. The Fun Pimps have said very clearly that this affects your seating, or basically how the world looks and acts, but they haven't told us how. So we're going to call this Rokbyter YouTube. Okay? In fact, it says right here, your game name you give the world is used to set the random world seed. But that's all they tell us. Kind of sad. I wish I knew how numbers affected it and everything else and that kind of stuff, but they don't have to give us that kind of information. Standard options, difficulty settings. Now, this list over here is the best possible description of what's going on here that you can ask for. Scavenger, easiest setting designed for noobs. If this is your absolute first game like this, absolutely pick this up. Pick it up on Scavenger. Don't worry about it. Don't feel like a noob. But this is not an easy game. Adventure, not just a new recruit anymore. It's exactly right. Nomad, warrior, survivalist. Maybe eventually we'll get some indication from Fun Pimps what these actually affect in terms of numbers, like we do in some of the other selections. My best guess is that it affects the hit point pool of the zombies and the damage of the zombies. Scavenger, if I were to guess, I would say 50% health points off of Nomad, which we're going to call this 0.0 or 100%. So my guess is 50%, 75%. Whoops. Warrior, I'm going to guess is 150. I'm going to guess Survivalist is about 250. And I'm going to guess Insane is 300, 400, 500. It's somewhere ridiculous. You will use an entire batch of arrows to bring down even basic zombies. I typically play on Survivalist, not necessarily, to show off, bravado, whatever, but most of the servers I enjoy playing on are at Survivalist difficulty. And if you are in a multiplayer environment, to me, that's more fun than, oh, look, we took a deep breath and blew really hard in that direction and all those zombies fell over. If you like that, well, go ahead, drop your difficulty. I'm going to highly recommend that if you are extremely confident in your ability to play a survival game, and you are extremely confident in your ability to win to play this game, and yet you still haven't played it before, the highest I would go is Nomad. That is I would consider that super hard difficulty for a first-time player. So, kind of pick in between these three as almost an easy, normal, and hard. And then as you get a couple of hours into the game, you can and start understanding how to do things, you can kick that difficulty up a little bit. Now, daylight length. How many hours the sun shines per day in the game. Now, we'll get to set the actual game day length later on. And I think default is 50 minutes per game day. So, you want to decide how many hours there are in the actual daylight time. Nighttime is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. There are only two things that happen at nighttime, guys. You are either cowering in shelter, praying nothing finds you, or you are cowering in shelter and praying that what has found you won't be able to get to you before the sun comes up. Okay, those are legitimately the only two things that happen at nighttime. So, I highly recommend that you start with an 18-hour daylight length. It is, I think 16 is default, but especially the first couple of times, nighttime is absolutely horrifying. Once you get used to this, most servers that I've found are set to 18 hours, but it prevents you from just sitting there twiddling your thumbs for 15, 20 minutes at a time. Zombies run. Please don't come change this unless you really know what you're doing, and if you know what you're doing, you're not watching this video anyway. Keep this on default. Default for zombie running Daytime, which is 18 hours out of the day, they walk, and they walk a little bit slower than you walk. Nighttime, they run, and they run just a little bit faster than you run. You really, I, to me, that's half the fun. If you're playing on Scavenger and you have all this set, and you're still just getting absolutely tore up, you can put this to never run. But you're not supposed to be around the zombies at nighttime. The goal is for you, no matter how powerful you think you are, to avoid fighting them at night whenever possible. Enemy aggression level. There are only two options here: normal and feral. Feral basically means they can smell you, they can smell you through walls, and yeah, don't do feral. If you just survivalist difficulty is not enough for you, you don't want them to just be you don't want them to just be sponges, but you want the game to be harder. Flip that over to feral. You'll regret the decision, but you'll have some great highlights. Persistent profiles. Okay, this is something that's basically a server thing. I don't know why it's an available option on single player, but basically what it means is it takes your Steam ID and makes it a profile on the server. So even if they change character names or rebuild the character that you have to build when you first start the game, that it still isn't the same. They don't get to start over that way. All right, modded options. Now, here are the options that get a little more crazy. 24-hour cycle. How long it takes for 24 hours to pass in the game. 50 minutes, 60 minutes. You can go up to 2 hours for a single day. 10 minutes, this seems impossible to me. I couldn't imagine playing the game with 10-minute days, 20-minute days even. 30, okay, maybe. But you've got to have time to accomplish things. Because remember, 7 days into the game is going to test you. It's going to push you. And you want as much time, daylight time, to prepare, and yet you want the nights as short as you can get them, so that you only have to hold the door for so long. Block durability, okay? This explains it perfectly. Modifies the hardness of every block in the world. If you increase hardness, then you and zombies will do less damage to blocks, and mining is slower. I honestly wouldn't move this off of 100% because this protects you. It also designs how hard it is to go loot, to do things. So moving this up means that you and zombies do half damage to everything with every possible weapon and everything else. I wouldn't move this off of 100%. If you move this down to 25%, zombies are going to tear through concrete walls like they're not even there. And that's bad. So, loot abundance. Now, if you're just playing on single player, leave the loot abundance at 100%. Uh, you'll have to you'll have to still scavenge and run and look around for things. But all this does is, if you increase it or decrease it, it changes the physical number of things that you loot each time you loot. It doesn't change how many items show up in each. It doesn't change the number of things you will find per container. Uh, let's give a specific example. If I go loot a trash bag, and at 100% loot, there are 30 bullets and a book for how to build pistols. At 200% loot, that turns to 60 bullets and 2 books. It doesn't change to 60 bullets, 2 books, and 4 other items in the bag, as far as I'm aware. Now, again, we don't get all of that information, but loot abundance, I've only noticed an increase in the stack size of what's in a container, not an increase in what is actually in the container. Loot respawn time. Now, single player, this is too long. You're going to have a miserable time if it's set to this. I would go with probably 10 days on single player. The reason is basically, this is how often, if you loot a car or a trash bag or whatever else, After 10 days of not being near it, it will respawn loot. 30 days is pretty much default on every server you'll go on to. But if you'll take a calculator real quick, and you'll take 50 minutes, multiply that times 30, and then divide it by 60, because that'll tell you how many hours the server has to be running before loot respawns. And hang on just a second, let me do that math real quick while I'm sitting here. I really should have done this, beforehand just so I had it available. But let's do a calculator. Let's do 50 times 30. Let's divide that by 60 so we know how many hours. Okay, 25 hours. So at a 50-minute, 24-hour cycle, and at 30 days respawn time, if the server has people logged into it, 25 hours later, things respawn. This means essentially every day or every other day, you will be able to reloot the same locations. Most people play for 2 or 3 hours at a time on a server per day, and that's okay. That kind of works. It's a little too frequent in my opinion, but it's not horrible at all, unless you're trying to play, a full day solid. Now, drop on death. This is one of those settings that I'm just going to tell you to leave it on everything. It's part of the experience of difficulty. If, again, you're on the easiest difficulty and you're just having trouble and you keep dying and you can't get back to your stuff, this is something you can change to make your life a little easier. But I just don't like changing it. That personal preference, we'll leave it at that. Enemy memory. This is how many seconds it takes for a zombie to forget that you exist. So let's say that you're running through a field and a zombie sees you, visually makes eye contact. Once they lose contact with you and they no longer see you, there is a 1-minute timer that starts. They will keep going in the direction they last saw you or heard you or smelled you for 60 seconds. And if they don't make contact with you again, they forget that you ever existed and either keep going or turn around, just depending on what their current mode is. Okay? So, 60 seconds is default. You can go down to 30 seconds for a little easier of a time, but I honestly don't see that this changes a whole lot. I understand the concept of what it changes, but I don't notice a difference. That's because I am either running away and ignoring the zombie, and I lose him back behind me, and it really didn't matter whether it was 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 90 seconds. I'm just going to lose them. Or I'm going to kill them, and in which case I don't care how long their memory is. So I've never really cared much for this setting and changing it. Enemy spawning. Now, the amount of enemies that will spawn in the world. This is a great option. As a parent, I love this option because I can create a game with my girls and I can disable zombies. Completely disable them. That means I'm basically playing a newer, better looking version of Minecraft with some survival stuff in it. And we can build a house and we can go out and hunt and we can chop wood and we can do things together, and I don't have to worry about nightmares and other horrible things like that. So you can set this to whatever you want. Medium is default, and medium is perfectly okay. If there's just too many zombies everywhere all the time, then you might want to change this down to low or very low, but medium should be fine even for single player. Airdrops. Now this is basically an airplane that shows up, makes a lot of racket when it does, and drops off a package for you. It's always going to drop near a player, so if you're on a server, it may not drop near you. But you'll be able to hear it if it drops near you, and if you go outside, you will see a smoke signal as it hits the ground. My experience is that the smoke signal, once it parachutes down to the ground, the whole way parachuted down, you'll see this huge plume of smoke. Once it hits the ground, however, that smoke will only continue for about 60 seconds. So, if you're not visually looking up at the sky when that thing comes down, and you're not running that direction, you're going to lose that package. And that's okay. That's part of the game. But that frustrates a lot of people. And we'll get into an option that'll make that a little easier. Now, airdrops have some of the highest quality goods in the game. So the more frequently airdrops happen, the more of a boost in the arm you get to your supplies. To me, every 7 days is fine. That means on Horde Day, I'm going to get an airdrop. And it's going to show up at noon every day on a Horde Day. And sometimes that might be just the boost I need to get through that particular night. Cheat mode, turn it off. Just switch over to creative mode if you want cheat mode. Seriously. Alright, mark airdrops. What this means is airdrops are marked on your compass and your map when they fall. I am a huge fan of this option, even on except on servers. Because on servers, you're competing with other people for those resources. But on single player, trust me when I say just turn this option on. You will be way less frustrated because I can't count the number of times I've been looting a building. I've been on like the 3rd floor with no good exterior facing windows, and I've heard that plane come by. And you're running and you're going as fast as you can to try to get down there, and then you're standing in the middle of a city street and you look around and you can't find the plane, you can't find the box, and literally you just lost whatever the airplane dropped because you will never ever find it except, on accident. So, these are the options that I recommend, guys. Again, we're going to go over it. If you're playing for the first time, have no shame. Go over to Scavenger. Daylight length, 18 hours of daylight. That means there are 6 hours out of 24 that are nighttime. That means between 10 o'clock p.m. or 2200 hours in the game and 4 o'clock a.m. zombies are running. Now, if you move this to 16 or whatever, it extends the hours and all is well there. Zombie run, we're going to keep on default. Enemy aggression, keep it on normal, unless you're just a masochist. 24-hour cycle, 50 minutes. It really depends on how long you have to play. If you just want some really short games, the fastest I can recommend is 30 minutes. Anything shorter than that, remember, 30 minutes equals 24 hours. So if you can only have 18 hours of daylight, that means in your 30 minutes, you're going to have a good chunk of that where you're not going to be able to do anything, and you're going to be really, really rushed to accomplish anything. 120 minutes is too long. I like between 90 and 40, just depending on if you're playing with a bunch of people, all that fun jazz. Block durability, I would not mess with this unless I really was comfortable with the game and knew what I was doing. Loot abundance. Loot abundance at 100%. Don't change that. If you're playing with friends, you can change this from 100% to 150% and you'll be okay. It won't really matter all that much. 200% is a little too much, in my opinion. You will have so much junk laying around, and it makes the game so much easier. Loot respawn time. If you are playing single player, 10-15 days is my recommended, because it's not going to move until you do, unless you're logged in. And after a zombie horde, you're going to need that boost in the arm. If you go to 15 days, remember that means you're going to survive 2 hordes before you can reloot any buildings, any trash bags that you looted on the first day. So that's okay. Too much loot is a bad thing. You get distracted. You don't prepare your defenses. You don't kill animals. All of those things. I think 15 days is probably a good standard option. Drop on death. Just leave everything. Drop on death. That's to punish you. To help you remember, don't die. Enemy memory, 60 seconds. Don't see a reason to change it. Enemy spawning. Medium is default. If you just really don't want very many zombies, you can go to very low. If you don't want to see zombies at all on your first playthrough, just get used to how to build things, how to survive in the world, that kind of stuff. Then go ahead and move your enemy spawning to disabled. And don't have any shame, man. Enjoy the game that way. That's what it's for. All right, airdrops. I recommend every 7 days. If you're looking to just have an easy game, you can move it to every 3 days or every 1 day. I don't recommend disabling them. There's some really high level stuff that it's very difficult to find any other way but airdrops. So I really don't recommend disabling it. Cheat mode off, keep that stuff off. And then mark airdrops on so that if you can't get outside to see the plane, or you're surrounded by trees or surrounded by buildings, you can still find that airdrop. On single player, that's absolutely critical. So, this has been my video tutorial on this. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please find me on social media, find me on Twitch, and ask. I absolutely have no problems going over stuff like this. This is kind of my first video on how to get yourself started on how to build yourself a map that you can play on. I'm going to be uploading another video, hopefully today, on how to get yourself actually started in the game. Once you spawn in with all of these options, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive day one? Okay, so for now, we're going to go ahead and stop this video. If you liked it, please like it. Don't. I would love if you would drop a follow. Come see me on Twitch. Otherwise, you guys have a great day.